Dear guests and viewers, welcome to the second part of the third debate of the Worst Institute Korea Monitor Program, proudly supported by the UniKorea Foundation. Today's discussion, Part 2, the impact of Korean unification efforts on women, healing, empowerment, and new horizons, builds on our previous conversation with Ms. Sohyun Lee. We'll explore the vital role of women in Korean reunification, focusing on the European perspective and addressing human rights and demographic challenges. It's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished guest, Dr. Joanna Guzik, Assistant Professor at the Institute of the Middle and Far East at Jagiellonian University in Krakow. Dr. Guzik's research examines the demographic, cultural, and societal dynamics of North and South Korea, as well as Japan, with particular focus on the second demographic transition and human rights issues. Dr. Guzik, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Our goal is to foster cross-cultural dialogue, drawing on Korea's unique context and Europe's post-World War II integration to highlight the potential contributions of women. We invite you to share your thoughts in the chat as we explore these critical issues. And let's begin with our first topic, human rights in North Korea. In 2014, the UN Commission of Inquiry on Human Rights in the DPRK exposed severe challenges faced by North Koreans, particularly in terms of freedom and fundamental rights, to the world. Dr. Guzik, how is North Korea's human rights situation perceived in Europe?
Thank you very much for this question. It's actually a very difficult question to answer because of the perception of human rights in Europe about North Korea changed dramatically, especially after the war in Ukraine. And also, it also changed a bit. I mean, the topic is less right now visible on media after the war. After the situation in Palestine and Israel developed that way. But let's go into details. First of all, we have to go back a bit in history, because since the ballistic and nuclear tests from the first decade of the 21st century, the issue of human rights in North Korea seems to have lost its priority in the media in favor of the threat that this country poses to its neighbors, to the region, and of course to the whole world. And especially after the strengthening of relations with Russia in 2024. Furthermore, in media, there is an impression the humanitarian crisis in Palestine tends to dominate. And in Poland, also, Russia's attack on Ukraine and the ongoing defense there, not only against Russian troops, but also North Korean troops in Ukraine, is also a hot topic. So the human rights topic is right now not such a hot topic, but the geopolitics, I guess, took control over the media and also our private conversation, especially in Poland. So the issue of human rights in North Korea, including women's rights, because when talking about women's rights, we should think of them as basic human rights as well, right? It's not a topic that is often discussed in the media or conversations among Poles. My attempt to find, because especially for this conversation today, for this talk, I attempted to find extensive public opinion polls on the situation in North Korea in the 2020s, in Poland, and in the European Union in English. And it was totally unsuccessful. It means that the perception of North Koreans in Europe is not an important thing at all. What is more important, of course, the development of nuclear weapons or ballistic missiles program in North Korea, North Korean cooperation with Russia, or its relations with China, or, for example, with Japan concerning the issue of kidnapping of Japanese citizens. So, of course, human rights topic is discussed mainly by researchers among my friends and professors. This is the topic that we definitely discuss, and also our students discuss it. at the University of Warsaw, for example, or at the Jagiellonian University at the Department of Korean Studies, where my students and other professor students take the human rights topics in North Korea as their topic for their thesis. So I think it's a good sign that still people remember that there are human beings in North Korea, uh, not only politicians and the Kim's
Mhm.
family, but there are also human beings that deserve human rights, full human rights. And I'm glad that there are students who, and professors and some researchers who try to keep this topic still lively in the media, at least a bit. And the issue of human rights in North Korea is important for European Union politicians.
Mhm.
It's evident by the documents issued in response to the, for example, aforementioned 2014 document that you
Yes.
have just mentioned. And of course, European Union criticized in many documents, of course, using the knowledge from the 2014 document, the violation of the human rights and human rights to food, even access to food, the full range of violations associated with prison camps, torture and inhuman treatment, arbitrary arrest and detention, violation of the freedom of expression, of movement, violation of the right to live, actually a violation of the freedom of individual movement, and so on and so on. And the newest documents that were issued by the European Union, because I'm not going to much back into the history, because that would take us the whole meeting and we would be discussing it even through the whole night. The newest documents that I'm going to talk about today is from 2022 and also 2024. These two documents, just in short, they, of course, criticize the situation in North Korea, and it's not respecting human rights. It's a constant violation of human rights. The 2022 European Parliament issued resolution in April on the human rights situation in North Korea, including the persecution of religious minorities. And quoting, I'm going to use the document. Whereas the DPRK remains one of the most repressive countries in the world, has the systematic, widespread, and grave violations of human rights in the DPRK, and whose scale and nature of Pyongyang's human rights violations reveal a state that does not have any parallel in the contemporary world. So, European Parliament in 2022 emphasized the distinctiveness of the internal policy of North Korea towards its citizens and violating of human rights in the North. There is an F section because it's a very long document and it consists of A, B, C, D, F, and many other letters or sections. There's an F that concerns women issue. And European Parliament in this F section says, whereas in addition to the violations suffered by the general population, women and girls in North Korea are, the quoting, a potential target of a range of sexual and gender-based abuses, with government officials both perpetrating and failing to effectively respond to rights violations, including widespread gender discrimination, sexual and gender-based violence. So, for EU, it is very important to promote democracy, respecting human rights, and also expressing that in the external policy. And of course, in this document, EU strongly urges the DPRK to fully comply with all the legal obligations deriving from the relevant UN Security Council resolutions, and also EU calls on United Nations members to take action to implement in full the existing UN Security Council sanctions. Of course, both. They concern the human rights and the violation of human rights in North Korea, and of course, um, other limits on production and export and import to North Korea. So everything. So EU is trying to include the human rights issue into its policy as well. The next document that I'm going to bring today is the document from 2024. And actually, it's a document that was issued during the Brussels Forum on the North Korean human rights situation. And it was issued by the European External Action Service in the EU's diplomatic service. It's a common foreign and security policy to promote peace and prosperity, security, and it was established in 2011. And the leader, of course, here. Or the person representing would be the High Representative, or also called Vice President. That would be, of course, Kaya Kallas. And in this document, she, of course, emphasized that across the world, we witness a backlash against human rights and against human dignity. Human rights, quoting, are under attack, but there are few places in the world where the statement has been for decades so true as in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. So, yes, European Union becomes more and more vocal about the human rights in North Korea. But I have to add that in those every time in those documents, EU adds the issue of the ballistic missile program development, nuclear program development, and so on, so on. So the everything is combined into one package, showing that EU is not happy about the situation. It is strongly condemning the situation in North Korea and requests the whole world to act in order to protect North Korean citizens and in order to protect the world against North Korean ambitions.
Yeah.
So this is what I think are the two latest and I guess the most important documents. And to sum up, EU, of course, quite often quotes on the document that you mentioned from 2014. And of course, it also uses the documents that are issued by the Unification Ministry of Korea. As far as I remember, the newest one, was issued in January 2025, and it also presents the views of the defectors from North Korea, and again, it gives testimonies about the human rights violations, also against women in North Korea. So at least European Union and the politicians are trying to change a bit the situation of the North Korean people and as well women in North Korea.
Thank you so much, Dr. Guzik. That was really insightful. Thank you for bringing those two other significant documents about this matter. So, Europe has developed robust human rights frameworks so far, shaped by experiences such as Germany's post-reunification efforts and also Poland's democratic transition. How can these frameworks inform our understanding of the challenges for North Korean women face? And what guidance might they offer for supporting North Koreans and Korea as a whole in this path towards reunification?
As a researcher, I have to admit that it's always a challenge to talk about prospective future. What
Yeah.
may happen and how and if. So it's always a challenge. And of course, I tried to find any similarities in Polish transition into the democratic country and also the German unification process. And I tried to find something, some useful tips or do's or don'ts for Korea after the reunification. So I think that we should tackle the economic and social disparities. I
Okay.
guess this is also what is important in the today's world because, as we know, the 21st century is called a century of migration. And these migrations happen because of the, for example, climate change, but also because of the political situations in many countries, because of the discrimination. These economic and social disparities are the reasons for many crises that are happening around the world. And also, the economic and social disparities in Germany and in Poland played the vital role in the internal politics as well. So, when it comes to Germany, economic and social disparities still remain visible, actually, in Germany. And they can have, of course, an impact on women. Always, because as you know from history and geography, Eastern Germany used to be kind of much poorer than the Western Germany that was democratized. And when Russia withdrew from Germany, also the support, financial support from Russia was also withdrew. So all of a sudden, the economy of the eastern part of Germany, was really in troubles. And for decades, unified Germany have been trying to do something about the disparities. And according to some data, which is issued on yearly basis by the ministries in Germany, the eastern part of Germany is still a bit lagging behind the western part in terms of unemployment rate, the possibilities of development for individuals. So we can still see differences, but we have to emphasize as well that the Eastern Germany, according to statistics, is
Mm-hmm.
much more into agricultural thing, and it takes some time to develop economy for Eastern Germany. When it comes to Poland,
Mm-hmm.
um, also Poland, when you go through the atlas of Poland, you will see that right in the middle of Poland, there goes the Vistula River. And for many decades, the Vistula River was considered to be a kind of an internal border between the wealthier western part of Poland and the eastern, less wealthy part of Poland. But it got changed. It got changed in the late 1910s,
Mm-hmm.
and according to statistics, in some western parts of Poland, we can see bigger unemployment, for example, higher unemployment rate than in some parts of the eastern Poland. So, to sum up, it seems that maybe criticized, but it turns out to be quite a good policy of Polish government made the eastern part of Poland make up with the western part, and the chances of development for individuals in eastern part of Poland are very similar to those in the western part. Yes, there are some cultural differences when it comes to religion or the views on the world. Yes, that's true. But when it comes to economy and the investment that came from EU, for example, in order to help the eastern part of Poland was vital and played its role. And now we can say that it's developing. Even the roads now have much better than they used to have, for example, 10 years ago. So it is important to include, in my opinion, specialists, not only the politicians, but
Okay.
specialists who analyze, who research the problem of or the issue of development of the society, in order not to make too big differences between some parts of of the country, of one country. And I think that also concerns Korea in the future when it becomes unified, because when the people are not happy about their situation, the
Mm-hmm.
radicalization of the society may play a big role later.
I see. That was an insightful perspective, Dr. Guzey. Let's now turn to the demographic challenges of Korean Peninsula, as it is your major research area. So, North Korea's demographic challenges, including chronic food insecurity, and profoundly shape its society and prospect for unification. Dr. Guzik, could you outline the key demographic situations of North and South Korea?
Um, Whenever I discuss with my students the issue of poverty and hunger in North Korea, I always have to explain to my students that if they decide to go sightseeing in the North Korea, if they go to Pyongyang, they will probably not see any signs of hunger. But if they leave the central part of, yes, if they go somewhere to the provinces, that would be much more visible, but they won't be allowed to see those things. So the information that we have about North Korea is a bit biased because yes, it's some travelers, some people who go sightseeing, and it is not that a challenge for a Polish person to go to North Korea because of our connections in the past, and we still maintain diplomatic relations and
We still have
take some photos. Yes, exactly. So you can go sightseeing in North Korea, and you can come back to Poland. So it's important that you come back, unless you do something crazy, like you tear off a poster or something, right? So you just should behave yourself. But definitely, hunger is an issue, and it started in the 1990s. And still, in the North Korea, we can see the issue growing. And it also is visible in the height of people. On average, South Korean people are much taller than North Koreans. Also, when people don't have access to food or clean water or to
yeah,
energy or to treatment, they are easier to manipulate, aren't they? If you're hungry, you do everything in order to make your stomach full, and also your children. You'll do everything and you'll be obedient, right? So that's the first thing we should add. And it's always very difficult for me to talk about those things with my students because always those who don't have enough power to change the situation in the country, and that is usually that it concerns children, they usually suffer most. But when it comes to demography, well, you can't have many children if you're hungry all the time, or maybe from time to time.
but still,
But
the fertility rate is higher in North Korea than South Korea.
exactly, exactly. But we have to say that this fertility rate is higher because it's 1.61. That's on average every woman has during her lifespan. And in South Korea, it is
0.6,
0.75. Yes,
yes,
it grew a bit.
like a bit.
Still,
I
it's
mean,
not enough because we need a replacement rate, and the replacement rate is about 2.1. So it's not
yes.
enough. And in the North Korea, they started having this problem in the 1990s. And in the early 1980s, in the South Korea, they stopped replacing their newer generations with older generations with the newer generations. And I should add a theory about the second demographic transition. The second demographic transition is it says that societies transition from a traditional phase with high birth and with a high mortality rates into longer life expectancy and also low birth rates. The question is North Korea undergoing the second demographic transition? And the second question we could ask is also if South Korea is undergoing the same process. Well, the second demographic transition is more about individual needs, individual rights. It is called also a post-materialistic approach, and it is connected with increased education among women, along
Mm-hmm.
with their professional activity. So yes, we do have in South Korea, in the North Korea, increased education among women. Yes, we do. Their professional activity, in South Korea to some extent, yes. In North Korea, a bit smaller, but still they're active when it comes to being the breadwinners for their families, especially in the northern part of North Korea, right? Because they participate in the market, and even their participation in the market started in the 1980s. So we have women who work and also are fully employed mothers. So they have two duties at the same time. Also, it is connected with the procrastination or even complete refusal to marry and have children. Is this process happening in the South Korea? Yes, of course. North as well. As far as we know from the documents from 2014 and also from the document, the newest document from January 2025, the factors say that women started refusing getting married. And also, if they marry, they don't want to have children. And if they have children, they even don't have two. They want to have one. So the second demographic transition is still the process here. Interestingly, the second demographic transition transition used to be connected only with the democratic states. It seems like it's just the desire of women, and not only women, but all the some individuals in North Korea who want to fulfill their dreams, want to live their lives, not only give birth and have children and have only duties, but they want to work, they want to do something else in their life. Of course, there were attempts by Kim Jong-un to influence somehow the birth rate in the North Korea. And since 2015, the abortion is no longer available in North Korea. It is forbidden. And in South Korea, it is totally opposite. From 2021, they depenalized the abortion. So maybe in the future, if the unification process starts and both North Koreans and South Koreans live together, I don't think that this ban on abortion will be still implemented. So maybe. So this is when it comes from the demographic perspective. And to wrap up this second demographic transition, is that South Korea has not undergone the whole process of the second demographic transition, because in the second demographic transition, it means that if you want to have a child as a single mother, you can do it without any shame. And it's still not very popular in South Korea, right? To be a single mom. And yes, and we don't have that much data on that in the north. But as far as we know, probably it is even more culturally forbidden to have to be a single mother with child or children. So the second demographic transition is fulfilled when the procreation is not connected with getting married. So the institutionalization of the marriage is also the thing that should happen, and in both countries it hasn't.
Yes, thank you. As a South Korean young woman myself, I can see that the second demographic transition is very close to the reality. It's a very sad reality, but the thing that we need to address as soon as possible. So let's get into more detail about chronic food insecurity problem. So how does chronic food insecurity impact North Korea's population, particularly in terms of severity, and what implications does this have for reunification efforts for the future?
Well, we can guess, we can assume. Taking the practical approach, in order to unify, there should be a desire on both sides. This is what happened in Germany. Both the Western and the Eastern Germans were interested in unification, right? So this is what should start first. And the question is if North Koreans will be willing and or are strong enough to take the risk and get rid of their beloved leader, right? And later, South will have to support making up the process for decades. From demographic points of view, um, maybe buying a house or a flat in North Korea for a South Korean person would be
Hmm.
much cheaper, or maybe South Korea will not be the only, or maybe Seoul won't be the only geog. I mean, the region centralized around Seoul, and but
Hmm.
maybe there will be more cities that
Hmm.
that would be good for living for South Koreans and North Koreans as well. So maybe it would encourage somehow the process of unification. So the migration of South Koreans into the north and vice versa. Of course, the reasons for the South Koreans to migrate to the north could be for the beauty of the nature, or just maybe the financial, like being able to afford a flat, or because as we know, Seoul is one of the highest, one of the most expensive capitals in the world, right? So life in Seoul is extremely expensive, and later, people, younger generation, don't have enough money to start a family, right? And also the flats are very small, so it is a challenge. And later, maybe North Koreans would come to the southern parts of Korea if they got the jobs. That's also a challenge. So I guess the future of unification is full of challenges, but it could be good for both parties, for both North Koreans and South Koreans. Also, South Korea, when it comes to food insecurity of North Koreans, could support because of its connections and its connections with the Western or the world generally. They
Hmm.
can provide Korean, especially the Koreans, especially in the beginning, with medicine, with support when it comes to food and other issues with development. But of course, there must be a desire on both sides, not only to give help, but to receive help. And geopolitics also play an important role in this process.
And how population changes and fertility crisis might affect the unification efforts.
That will not be something optimistic, I have to admit. All the societies that I've researched,
Hmm.
um, in each society that I've researched, there was an interesting phenomenon. If migration occurs of a new ethnicity, usually those new ethnicities, they adopt the birth rate or the style of life of their new motherland.
Okay.
So I don't think unification is the solution to low birth rate. But on the other hand, we never know who may fall in love with whom, and maybe some South Korean men or women may find some fantastic love in the North and vice versa. So in this context, it could be win-win, but I don't think that all of a sudden there will be many children in Korea. I have to admit that if it stays 1.5, that would be really, really good. But on the other hand, as we know, um, the pessimistic view of the South Korean society is that maybe it will vanish in this at the end of this century
Please.
if women, yes, exactly, if women don't have more children. So
Is there
I
any
guess
possibility of the unified Korea in the future will have more children after, if we assume if they unified in the future? Because the economic power of the unified Korea will grow up, and that will maybe help younger people and maybe encourage the younger people to have more children, I would say. Do you think
true,
that's a
but
possibility?
on the other hand, if we take the second demographic transition theory, it means that people live their lives happily. And as we know, having a child is a blessing, but on the other hand, these are duties, a lot of duties, and we have to spend a lot of money on them.
Yes.
So it's a question that should be asked to younger generation, but both to men and women, if they're ready to have children when they have much better economic situation, if the food is a bit cheaper, for example, or if the houses are cheaper, if the rent is cheaper.
Mhm.
These are the questions that should be asked. But I still don't think that there will be a huge boom of Korean children. I think these kind of phenomena that happened in the world after the World War II
Mhm.
are no longer in this world
People are
with these
less
values possible.
oriented these days, and that kind of
Mm.
perception is especially stronger in Korea. That people would value their individualistic life rather than family-oriented lifestyle.
Yes, I guess it requires some more grassroots work and or movement of men, and also changes the attitudes towards the role of women in general in South Korea. It seems like some traditional people, and I'm not talking only about men or all the generations. No, no, no. Some even younger generations, men,
Mhm.
also have this very traditional perception of women roles, not only in Korea but around the world. And it requires some good policy by the government, and also role models. If a politician, an important politician, man, decides to take, for example, some leave if he has a child, and if he shows to the population that it's possible to be a good father as a man, be a good parent, so maybe there'll be more and more politicians like that later, and maybe something is going to change. But it requires not only the politicians, but also the perception of the engagement of men to
Mhm.
be good fathers at home, and
Mhm.
their desire, their need to stay home and participate in a child rearing process. Mm.
I see. This really was an interesting conversation. Let's now explore how women's empowerment can address these challenges in the context of unification. So, based on your research, what cultural barriers might North Korean women face in participating fully in a unified Korea's political and society, like social systems, as they are from a very authoritarian regime?
Mm. Yes, we have to remember in what environment North Korean women were brought up and educated as well. Um, First of all, they they're not so lucky to experience freedom of movement, freedom of expression of their thoughts, freedom of gathering. And all of a sudden, they'll be in new environment imposed by the unified government. Of course, we assume that the future perspective, reunified Korea will be democratic, so we assume that human rights will be respected, and also women's rights as well. So, first of all, it will require changes in the way of thinking, and accepting new reality, the truth on television, the full access to media, to information, and being able to travel to Busan whenever they want, and of course, if they have finances for doing that. And also, we have to take into consideration the differences in the wealth, and also in the education system. The education system in the North Korea is based on rather some older solutions. Yes, they study English, yes, they do, but not from American course books, as far as I know. They studied Russian as well. Uh, but they need something more in order to become successful in new environment. That means economy, free market economy, which can be very difficult for those generations who are not used to it. I was born in the late 1970s in Poland.
Mm-hmm.
And I was maybe not lucky, but I had a chance to watch the changes of Poland and the society from the communist state and the transformation into a democratic state, and also our economy. And I remember the times when in 1989 everything started. And of course, before this important date, I remember my parents forbade me talking about their activities in the solidarity movement. So I had to keep it very quiet because I knew that it would pose danger to my parents. By the way, they wouldn't have told me unless I
Mm-hmm.
had founded a CAP with solidarity movement. So I just found out by accident about that. And what happened later in Poland? Everything became really expensive, and people didn't have enough money to buy things during the communist times.
Mm-hmm.
It was impossible to sometimes to buy even toilet paper or shampoo. I used to have long hair as a child, so I needed good shampoo. And I remember that it was scarce. You couldn't get a shampoo even.
Because it was really
Only in during the communist times, it was not available because
I
of
see.
the planned market economy. So
Mm-hmm.
they produced this and this amount of shampoo, and there was nothing left because everyone bought it. It was the same with sugar or meat, for example, in the region of Krakow, where I live. And later, after the 1989, after we opened the borders and so many products from abroad came, everything was so expensive that we couldn't buy it. So in the communist times, usually had quite enough money to buy shampoos. They were very cheap. But later, after the changes, everything was so expensive. So this is what is going to happen probably also for the North Koreans. The defectors, especially women, they say that they don't want to come to South Korea because everything is so expensive, right? Some of them, they tend to stay in China because it's much cheaper, and they don't want to be poor in South Korea, but they prefer being just being medium wealth in China. Of course, China is a bit dangerous place for them as well, unless their husband, the Chinese husband, bribes the red tape and the
So, which
bureaucrats.
means economic integration policies would be really critical in the future then.
Exactly. Exactly. And I have to now a bit criticize a bit South Korean wage gap. Right now,
Mm-hmm.
even in the democratic environment, still there is a huge wage gap in South Korea. So right now, the task for South Korean politicians and activists is to do
Mm-hmm.
something for South Korean women in order to make this wage gap almost disappear. Because in the ranking of the wage gap and equality when it comes to wages, South Korea is about 100th place, and it is even behind China. So this is what should be done. And later, when the situation stabilizes in South Korea, it would be much easier, I guess. I'm not an
Mm-hmm.
economist, it's not my specialization, but I guess that it would be a bit easier to include also North Korean women into the system. And generally, just to being able to um, take advantage of women's hands to work. This is what was done by the Prime Minister Abe in Japan during
Mm-hmm.
the Womenomics. Well, he announced that he wanted 30% of women to be what managerial posts should be occupied by women. Of course, he did not meet the goals, but still, it seems to be a good idea. It seems to be a good idea in my opinion. So, social campaigns,
Mm-hmm.
what else? Introducing quotas. at universities, in the parliament. For example, like no less than 30% of women should be in the parliament, or no less than 30% of employed office workers should be women. Already, South Korea had to employ a lot of women during the crisis at the late in the late 1990s, when the
Mhm.
IMF asked South Korea to change its policy towards women. And I
Yeah.
think it is possible. Just the politicians have to be willing to do so.
Okay, I understand. So finally, I'll pose my the final question. So, drawing on Europe's post-war integration, how have European networks such as EU or other international organizations contributed to rebuilding societies, and what lessons could they offer for supporting North Korean women for North Korea's context,
Hmm. Um,
such as
First of all,
international?
I
Yes.
think that Germany, as I mentioned before, our officials, beginning of today's talk, I mentioned that Germany played the vital role from as early as 1989 in promoting Polish access to Europe,
Mhm.
to integrating Poland into European structures. And I know that Germany has been criticized by some, especially right wingers in Poland, but we
Mhm.
have to also say that Germany played a vital role. Yes, of course, it was also good for them from the economic point of view, because Poland could become the outlet for their production and so on, so on. Yes, but still, for the German politicians and for Poles, it was important to have such a friend, influential friend, who can promote Poland in EU. So I guess when it comes to the unification process in the future for Korea, I guess that would be the role for South Korea. South Korea, as already has a lot of friends around the world and also in Europe, and I guess South Korea would be the promoting actor in order to grab attention of the world and grab also financial support, definitely in the future. That will be needed from organizations like the United Nations, or maybe IMF or the World Bank. Those kind of activities, I guess, will be placed on the shoulders of South Koreans or Korean diaspora. And I guess also the United Nations organization, because, and also Europe, because, as I mentioned today in the beginning, Europe is promoting human rights around the world, and wants them to be respected in the North Korea. Also, European Union praises South Korea for its promoting democracy. Let's go back to South Korea. In December, what happened, right? South Koreans proved that their democracy is resilient. I think it's a good thing for the prospect of unification, isn't it? It looks really optimistic. So that will be a burden for South Koreans to support financially, and not only North Koreans, but later I think it's a win-win situation. Mm.
I see. Thank you for your projections and insightful analysis. Dear viewers, today's discussion has underscored the transformative role women can play in Korean reunification. Dr. Gusik's insights have shed light on how Europe's experiences, ranging from Germany's reunification to Poland's economic and societal transitions, offer valuable lessons for addressing human rights, demographic challenges, and cultural economic barriers. Through collaborations across South Korea, Europe, and maybe beyond, we can empower North Korean women to shape the future of a unified Korea. My sincere thanks to Dr. Joanna Gusik for her invaluable contributions, and to all of you for joining us in this vital dialogue. Together, we're building a path towards a thriving, unified Korea. We kindly invite you to our future debates, and thank you. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.